All right. Open it presentation mode. Or I think I will put it in presentation mode. Yeah, I'm having a day, guys. So we are here tonight to have a conversation about a very timely topic, but one that is not new. And that is to give voice to, a very underrepresented group in the technology space. And that is the experience of the African American woman in the technology space. There we go, finally, I have it displaying. And I am very happy to introduce you tonight. First, we have Nicole Farrington. She is the Senior IT Manager of Organizational Development and Change Management at NXP Conductors, or NXP Semiconductors, formerly known as Motorola Semiconductor. She is also responsible for driving NXP's digital and cultural transformation globally. She's been in the IT industry with Motorola NXP for 26 years, and she is also one of the IT advocates for DE&I, as well as the lead of the Black Achievement and Leadership ERG for NXP. Nicole is PMP certified and a SAFe practitioner. We also have Tamika Sears with us tonight. She is the VP of Talent with Atlas Motor Vehicles and is responsible for their D&I initiative. In addition, she is an executive coach with Sears Coaching. She has over 20 years of experience in human resources in the high-tech, healthcare, publishing, and automotive industries. And at this point, I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to ask if Tamika would tell us a little bit about her story.
My story. So which part of my story would you like?
So if you would, tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are today and kind of your perspectives on D&I in general and your experiences with building out those types of programs, especially in some of the technology aspects.
Okay. Yeah, so my journey has been a very long one, full of student loans and debt, but here I am, yay.
Yay.
I've worked for many companies. Someone mentioned Raytheon. I worked for Raytheon for a while. I worked for many companies that hire tech people, that hire engineers. And one thing that is pretty universal is that they don't hire diverse engineers. And there are a lot of organizations that are putting in programs to say, you have to have a diverse panel if you're going to hire someone, right? You have to make sure that you have your slate of people that you talk to are diverse, whether it's internal or external. And I have definitely found that when that happens internally, the same, Asian man, Black female, whatever, is tapped on the shoulder for a job that they never get. So that's I know, very discouraging to employees. And that's something that at Atlas, I want to make sure absolutely never happens. We are trying to make our diversity and equity and inclusion start at the beginning and be just kind of woven into everything that we do. And I will admit, I did have a total mishap. So I am a woman, Black woman. We have an interview process, and I spoke to a woman engineer that we interviewed, and she had concerns that we didn't have any women working for us. And I was like, oh yeah, we do. Like, our president is a woman. We didn't have her speak to a single woman during the hiring process. Big fail. Big old fail.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm always learning. People are always growing. And I think that whether you're Black, white, green, or grizzly, I think people need to be given some grace, because there is a lot of learning to be done.
Well, there certainly isn't a perfect experience anywhere, right? As you say, certainly not perfect, but as long as we're always learning and getting better, that's the best we can expect of each other, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for telling us a little bit about your particular journey, and I concur with you on the student debt piece. I'm there myself. So I think at this point, what we will do is we will shift and have Nicole. Okay, let me get out of this view. And Nicole, there you are. Let me put the spotlight on you now.
Okay.
So there you are. So Nicole, welcome. If you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about some of your experiences. You're kind of our voice of a woman of color, specifically in technology. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what it's been like for you?
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here today to present. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. As Stephanie mentioned earlier, I have been in the industry for about 26 years, and I actually started at a very young age, at 17, working for Motorola. I got the opportunity through a program called En-ROADS. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with it. It was started back in 1970 by Frank C. Carr, who was he was an African-American, a very high level executive at the time. And he essentially walked away at the peak of his career to step away and focus on helping minorities in general to open the doors into the technology world, those that are interested in science and technology and engineering and math, and giving them opportunities in the corporate community. In any case, it was through a program at my high school at the time that I was identified as a potential candidate based on my interest and my passions around engineering. So I got the opportunity. I was trained and educated a little bit on how to interview at a young age. How do I interview in the corporate world? And it was an interesting process. Long story short, I interviewed with about 4 different major technology-driven companies, all of them still standing today. And I got the opportunity with Motorola, and all the while working in the IT organization. Different aspects I've learned. I went through college, got my degree while continuing to work even part-time while I was getting my degree. And when I graduated, I was offered a full-time position and employment with the organization. Have worked in many fields, did business analyst, did software programming, did many different fields, but I have a lot of energy, so I like to get involved with a lot of different things. So over years, I've collected a lot of knowledge and expertise, and my experiences have been something that was very interesting. And it honestly wasn't until the end of, well, I'll just say the beginning of last year, that I was essentially forced to reflect on my career, my 26 years, and what was really happening in front of me. And I'll have to say that one of my pivot points, one of my pivot points was when, shortly after the things happened with George Floyd, my CIO at the time decided that he wanted to speak out to our organization globally. And he took the action of posting, a call to action. How are you doing, on our internal social media, if you will, called Yammer. And in that, he basically expressed his, concern about what was happening globally, especially here in the US. And he asked everyone, very open in a very, internally public forum, how we were feeling. And I had heard about this post, and I went and I looked at it, and it had actually been up for a couple of days. And I saw many, many responses from many people across the organization. Some people I knew, some people I didn't. Some people lived across the waters and really didn't have an idea of what we were truly talking about. But all the feedback that I saw that was in response to this post was very generic, very watered down. The question that he asked was, how are you really feeling? I really want to know. Tell me. And the responses were, oh, thank you for addressing this. We appreciate you, uh, we appreciate you bringing this to the forefront. Or, I'm feeling great. I appreciate your thoughts, and I'm looking forward to doing stuff to, to change the culture within XP. But out of the probably about 50 or 70 responses that I saw, nothing from my perspective was real. Nothing was real. So I have 4 kids. And when I saw the post, I had to decide, was I going to respond or was I going to let this go by? And given the different, oh my goodness, given the different conversations I had to have with my children in our household, I was compelled to respond to this post. And when I did, it took me about 3 days to wrap my head around it and decide what I really wanted to say and how I really wanted to respond, because I did not want to gloss over anything. And I wanted to be authentic in my response and completely transparent, because for 26 years, I had been quiet because I am a Black woman in a white male-dominated industry. And even from the time that I went through the En-ROADS program, I was trained, I was educated and instructed not to be the typical Black woman, not to be loud, not to come off as aggressive. Don't complain because you'll be seen as argumentative. And that was embedded in me. That was embedded in the way that I presented myself and how I engaged with people in my company. And it didn't really come to light until last year that I was forced to turn around and look at my journey and realize just how did I get to this point. So I was able to get through that somewhat with minimal tears. I apologize.
No, do not apologize for feeling what you feel.
Sorry.
It is perfectly okay.
And so it was a long response, to say the least, but I made sure that my story was heard. At least I put it out there, and people, if you chose to listen, great. But what it did, it triggered conversation. I was reached out to by so many people within my organization about, my response. And a lot of it was, I had no idea. That was the response. They had no idea. And we're talking all the way up to our CIO, his entire executive team, individual contributors, managers, near and far. And many of them just wanted to talk. And I even learned some things about other minority groups, and found that there were a lot of similarities in what I was doing and how I felt that I was hiding my true self so that I can acclimate and fit into the corporate industry for so long, rather than being my authentic self. And a lot of different minority groups feel the same way. And so I didn't even realize that. So I even learned by opening it up, but it triggered a lot of things. And after being contacted so many times, I was getting inundated with phone calls and emails and chats, because at this point, we're all virtual. And I'm like, I still have a job to do. So I decided, as a part of my, well, actually, I was just getting involved with our Black Achievement and Leadership team at that time. And I wasn't seeing anything happening. And I just said, the biggest thing that people just really they want is just to talk. So I started some program within my organization that we called our conversation series. And all it is just an informal conversation. And we meet every other month. And the first one, we kicked it off, I think it was July or August of last year. And all it was bringing everybody together, just an open invitation What questions do you have? How are you feeling? What are you dealing with? And we had no set agenda. The only ground rule that we had was that this was a safe zone. I am not in HR. I do not have an HR background, so I'll also have to say that. But I didn't even, unfortunately, but I didn't care whether or not HR approved my approach or not. It was going to happen because they can't stop me from having conversations. If people want to be comfortable in asking me questions, I want them to be able to ask me and my peers, as long as they're comfortable with it, to ask us those questions. So we gave them that avenue, we gave them that channel in doing so. So we had more than 300 people join our first session, way beyond what we had anticipated to begin with, to be honest. But it really triggered something in the organization. And now we have a spotlight. We have a platform where, we can have a conversation and people from all levels are listening and they're paying attention. And so we've done these now 4 times, and every time we did put a little bit of formality into them. But long story short, it was really about getting down to the conversation. In order to really affect change within our organization and our culture that our CIO expressed that he wanted for this company, we had to start by having those conversations. And so if I fast forward now, we're almost a year later. And while there are some changes that are being made, it is a slow process. I mean, we're a company with over 30,000 employees. And we just recently, literally March 10th to be exact, released our public DE&I demographics, our metrics, where we currently stand today and what are our target goals that we want to accomplish in 2025. It took much longer than I had anticipated, but I do understand that these things sometimes take time. Meanwhile, myself and those that look like me, we are doing what we can to continue driving change, continue to educate others who are interested. We are partnering up with other ERGs and making things happen. We just in March had another program that I launched with the National Society of Black Engineers at the Arizona State University campus, but we also pulled in U of A, as well as NAU participants, where it's called our Career Exploration and Development Workshop, where we I was thinking the model that how I was able to enter this corporate workplace, providing something similar to those who have that interest in engineering. And so we did a 4-week program for that. It was excellent. We had 30 participants, and many of them we are already identifying as potential candidates to recruit into our organization. So that's probably a little more time than I was supposed to take. I apologize. I was going to stop.
Oh, stop. And you know what? If there's one thing that is resonating in my head right now, never apologize for being you. Never
Still
do that
learning
again.
that.
Never do it again.
I'm a work in process.
Hey, we're all a work in progress. And if anything, I'm seeing you where I was about 10 years ago, right? Give yourself permission to be authentic.
Yeah.
Please. Because when you do, you're going to cry. We talked about this. You're going to cry because it matters. It matters. God, now you're going to make me cry. Stop. It matters. You matter. Tamika matters. We all matter. And all of us have stuffed our voices for a long time. And you in particular, have stuffed your voice. And I am very happy you've had the opportunity at work and now here to share that, because others need to know. They need to know that people are not feeling comfortable sharing who they really are. And if people don't really know, do some research on code switching. That's a lot of what Nicole was just describing. And I'm happy to share information if people want to know what that looks like and what it feels like. So, right, I am going to take spotlight off of you for a second and see if I can figure out how maybe to get all three of us on the screen. I can even still figuring out all these views. Okay, so everybody take a breath. Very powerful, huh?
Yes.
There's a lot there. So next we have a few questions that Tamika and Nicole and I kind of brainstormed on that I'm going to kick off the first one, be kind of a conversation mostly between Nicole and Tamika. Hopefully I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Of course, we all know me. I'm not always the best at that, but I'm certainly going to try. But these are some ones that we thought might lead to some interesting conversations that others would be interested in. So let me see if I can figure out how to get to a different kind of view. Well, it's Zoom. We'll figure it out.
And you guys?
Let's see. I'm just going to put it on speaker view, and that way it'll switch back and forth between Nicole and Tamika as you guys speak. At least for me, it will. So, all right, I'll just put it on that for now. So, let me kick it off. Since around early 2020, a spotlight has been placed on diversity and inclusion, as we've heard, first from Tamika and her experiences and from Nicole. A lot of companies have made these grand statements and updated their policies and aspiring to increase diversity in their organization. However, although there can be a wide gulf between the aspirational culture, what they say they are, versus reality. So between Nicole, you, and Tamika, what's been your experience with leadership in your organization between what they say they are and what's reality? You want to go first, Nicole, or do you want to take a?
Yeah, I mean, I'll briefly comment because I alluded to it a little bit already. I think our leader, our CIO, has the right idea, and I do believe that his executive team is on board with that. But how that's getting pushed down is still a huge work in progress. As I mentioned, there's a lot of things that they have to acknowledge before real change can truly take effect. And while right now there are just numbers that on a sheet of paper, the strategy behind how it's going to get done still, remains to be seen and still remains to be communicated. I have been able to meet with other companies, down this journey of mine, to understand how they're doing it within their organization. So there are things that we can certainly learn from other organizations to implement within with my company.
All right. Tamika, what do you think from the HR perspective on this topic?
Current company excluded because I run HR. I've had some pretty awful experiences as a Black woman in HR and at organizations. When you say that you want to hire diverse people, but when those diverse people get there, they're treated like they are other, those diverse people are not going to stay, and you're hurting them. You're literally hurting people when you do that. To think about it, for the people who are not of color, my non-melanated people here, how often before George Floyd were you reminded that you were white? When you went to work, how often did you think about being white? Whereas every day, all my life, I go to work and at some point I'm reminded that I'm Black. Whether it's somebody with a Black people question, or it is someone that's like, oh, you go in the diversity team. There's always something. And it goes so high that at times it feels like it's like irreparable. You know,
Mhm.
for being myself and standing up to someone, a leader who would not hire a transgender woman, got money taken out of my bonus.
What?
Yeah. So again, that's a company that says that they want to do right by diversity, but they took money from me for trying to hire a diverse candidate. Um, so you can have all the, you know, the numbers in the world, like Nicole said, you know, you're like, oh, we're going to put out this thing and these are our goals. You know what? You're going to keep churning and burning because
Right.
to get there, they're treated poorly and they leave each and every time.
Yeah, it definitely changes. I want to comment or at least add to something that Tamika said is that, you know, every day we walk in and you're reminded that, you know, that you're different, right? You're reminded of your color. One of the things for me, and I have seen many others that have come and gone in this company, but because their backgrounds are a little bit different, they, you know, chose a little bit differently than I did. Um, and what I mean by that is even when something is not said to you, I know for me, and I'll speak for me, I would walk into an office and while nothing was said, often I look around and realize there's no one here that looks like me. And I look at our
Mhm.
org charts and there's no one on our org charts even today that looks like me or even looks like my brother for that matter. And so that's really disheartening. And if we don't see people that look like us, then we don't believe that that's a path that we could take. That
It takes away hope.
it does. It really does. And it's hard. It's something really difficult to deal with. And I think, you know, when we talk about hiring, and we just had a situation like this just a couple weeks ago, but people tend to hire those who look and act and behave like them. And I think we talk about ways to change that, and I think Tamika's right on having diverse panels, um, you know, and diverse qualifications when hiring somebody is imperative. Having a very diverse candidate slate is also imperative. We had a situation, I'll share. We had a situation within my company and specifically within the IT organization where there was an organizational change. And again, let's keep in mind that we just released our targets, our metrics, and we want to increase the number, and without putting all the numbers out there, but our goal is to increase the number of women in leadership positions. That's the goal. There was a recent organizational change within our organization where they moved some things, and in the process of moving things, additional males were promoted to leadership positions, while in the process, women were removed from leadership positions. So completely went in the opposite direction. Now, when questioned as to why such changes were made, the response was, well, first, of course, we look at the qualifications of those who we wanted to, you know, promote, if you, I don't like to use the word promote, but let's say move into these leadership positions. And so when, if you look at those individuals who had, and all of you who are in management positions, listen closely, because if you look at the group of people who had the decision-making authority as to who was going to be moved into these leadership positions, they were all white male. One Asian male, but they were all male. Let's just start there. They were all male. Okay. And their qualifications were set by that same group. So if that same group is setting the qualifications for a particular role or position, they will find those qualifications will be qualities that they want, and it's typically qualities that they can associate themselves with, that they can align with, that they're used to. And if there's no diversity and diversification in setting those qualities, you won't get a diverse panel, you won't get a diverse candidate. So just something to keep in mind, because this happens quite a bit, and it just happened in my company.
It's sad. You know, that the sad thing is that, I mean, there are studies that when you make resumes color, gender blind, it's amazing how diverse the people that are chosen become. And you know, we could do a whole session on unconscious bias and microaggressions, and I know the three of us could probably preach to the choir here. But it's sad to me that we are missing out on such rich conversation capability, transformation, because we're missing out on voices. And without diversity of voice, you never really truly achieve true transformation, because I mean, you have blind spots, always. So, Nicole, you in particular, when you were telling your story, you talked a little bit about having to, it's what my mom used to call hiding your light under a bushel, right? Sorry, I grew up in the South, everything has a saying, and of course that Southern accent comes out. But one of my favorite quotes from Marian Wright Edelman is, "You can't be what you can't see." And I experienced that myself growing up just as a woman in tech. And I can't imagine when, you know, only 11% of the technology population is women of color in general, and of that only 3% is African American women. How can we change that when you can't be what you can't see and you can't be authentic? I mean, and it's not just in technology. I mean, Tamika, you talk about some of your experiences. How can, I mean, not about me. I try to do everything I can to amplify diverse voices. What can we do beyond, and again, this is not me trying to get you to tell me what to do, but can you help us open up the vision, find ways to amplify voices maybe we haven't thought of before? Any suggestions?
Do you want to start, Tamika?
Sure. So for me, like I said, it starts with creating the right environment overall. If you have managers that you know are going to just hire other white males, get rid of them. Seriously, like it's very pervasive that there's an environment of white is right in organizations. And if you're not someone that, like Nicole said, is willing to put on that mask when you go to work every day, you're basically fired for being Black. Like you're fired for being who you are, because you're too aggressive, you're too loud, you're too whatever. And the people who are in leadership roles don't connect with that. They don't understand it. So they're like, we're just done. We have to have people in leadership roles that are inclusive. So if you have someone that's not inclusive and you know that they're not, stop trying to fix them. There's sometimes no fix for that. And if you want the change to happen quickly, you have to take drastic action. Drastic action is making sure that you're creating the right environment for people when they walk in your door. When they walk in,
Absolutely.
and the stories that they hear are all about, oh, you don't want to work for so-and-so, or, Bob did this last week. You're wasting your time and you're wasting your efforts. You have to create the right environment to begin with. And then you have to be completely intentional when you do your hiring. Like Nicole is going to the National Society of Black Engineers. Do that. Talk to all different types of people. Talk to all different types of companies. You have to break out of that comfort zone, because that comfort zone is what got you here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to say, I think it's very important that that you have these uncomfortable conversations. While I do believe that there is a large population in the corporate world that is resistant to change, because, and I think most of them, let me back up. I don't think that people inherently want to be bad or want to exclude. I don't believe that. Um, However, if they don't know that they're being exclusive unintentionally, they don't know to do anything different, or how to do things better. So what I've learned, through many of these conversations that I've had, globally with my company, is that you have to want people that want to recognize where their unconscious biases are, and also want to be able to change them. Of course, I mean, Tamika's approach is one approach. If people are set in their ways, get rid of them. That's one approach. But sometimes you just can't say, well, that person is set in their ways. Have we asked the question, do they realize what their unconscious biases are? And do they want to change that? And can we put things in place that will help them to change? And I'm just not talking about, forcing diversity training, because I truly believe that if somebody really wants to change, you shouldn't have to force them to do so. Not to mention, if you have to force somebody to want to learn something new or learn something different or behave differently, that will never be successful. They've got to want it. They have to want it from their own selves, from their core, in order to really make the positive culture change that you want to have within your organization. You asked in terms of why do I feel that African American women are so underrepresented. It is because we don't have necessarily the right level of sponsorship that I think that we should, in the organization. And I can touch upon, I attended how I met Stephanie and even Mary was last year during, what did we attend? It was the HMD strategy meeting that was held in Phoenix. And I walked into this huge conference room. And if any of you were there, and I think I recognize a few faces, if any of you were there, one of the things, and I just shared this with Stephanie yesterday, is during that session, I, just off the cuff, I walked to the back of the room and I was getting a snack, and I turned around and I stopped for a minute and realized, oh my God, I'm the only Black woman in this room. And how many people were at that HMG strategy meeting? Probably about 300 or so, maybe more, maybe less. And I stood back and I was kind of taken aback, like, why am I the only Black person in this room? And I took my phone camera, lifted it up and snapped a picture, because I wanted to zoom in to see if there were any Black men in the room at that point. But I only bring that up is because there's this, I won't call it a secret society, but there are secret societies. And there has to be ways that women can become part of those societies to get the same types of opportunities that others get. Not just, I won't even just say white males, just males in general. There are other opportunities, opportunities for executive coaching, things of that nature.
You've got a great story. You should tell that story.
Oh, do we have enough time? I don't think we have enough time.
No, actually, we need to go into breakout. Yes. but you should ask Nicole offline about her story about executive coaching. She has a great one. But yeah.
Long story short is that, we have to be able to, I would challenge all the males out there is to align yourself, become allies. You'll hear this term, or if you haven't already heard it, allyship. It's important. Become allies with women. Get out of your comfort zone. With women, with people of color. If you're in an environment where you're typically surrounded by people that always look like you, take a page, go and just out of the blue, go meet with someone that doesn't look like you, that doesn't come from your same background. go learn something new. It will probably be the most awkward conversation and then lots of deadly silent periods, but just go do it. Just start being comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's where it's going to start making changes that you will want to see.
Absolutely. Well, I think this has been an incredible conversation. And what I would love to do is my two chatters, fireside, I don't know what's called, panelists, at this point, if you guys are comfortable, I think what we would love to do next is have our attendees go into breakout rooms and chat amongst yourselves. Sorry, can't help it, I had to say that. And in your groups, come up with a question. And it, as long as it's respectful, Johnny, as long as it's respectful, open yourselves up and think, what is one question that you would love to ask right now? You're going to have 5 minutes, and there's going to be, I think I got 29 people, so probably 4 groups that I'm going to just, I was going to try to force into different rooms, but I'm just going to let, I'm just going to let Zoom figure it out. But I want you to go into your rooms and come up with one question. And then when you come back out, send it to me directly in the chat. And you know, I'll force rank them, and we'll get through as many of those 4 as we can. Does that sound like a good plan to everybody?
Yes, Stephanie.
All right, thank you. All right, and hold on, I'm getting back to the gallery view. There we go. All right, so I am going to start the breakout rooms. I am going to just do automatic 4 rooms, about 5 to 6 people per room. And Nicole and Tamika, if you get shoved into a room, just come back out to me. I'm going to stay in the main room. Sound good?
How much time
All
do you have
right.
in the breakout room?
5 minutes.
Okay.
We're going to give everybody 5 minutes, and I will give you a 2-minute warning, and then you'll get a 1-minute warning. So when you come back, just directly chat to me what your question is. We're looking forward to it. See everybody in 5 minutes. All right. Travis, Bob, Michael, are you guys really there? This happens sometimes.
Doesn't
People
seem
join.
like it.
And then they walk away. Oh, Travis went into a room. I bet you Bob's on the board. I bet you he got sucked. He's actually at work, and he got sucked into a call or something. Mike, Armijo. You know what? I am going to, well, I can't force them into a room. They have to choose to go to a room. So, all right. 5:29. So, what do you think so far?
I think I took too long.
You were fine. Stop it. You were in the moment, and I was not going to stop you because it was powerful what you were sharing.
I don't think that
And
you took too long. I think that you tell your story the way that you need to tell it and the way that people need to hear it.
mhm. I don't know if you're watching the chat, but there was nothing but thank yous for you telling your story. You should look
I
through
didn't
that.
even open it. Let me go open.
There was nothing but thank yous.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, this is the second one today. I had a crucial conversation earlier today where a young Black gentleman shared a story about, God, that's why I almost started crying, because he got me earlier today. I was the only white person on this call. And he was sharing a story about being the only Black person in a wedding party and they were throwing the bachelor party, went to a cabin that they rented online. They drive up and realize it's on a plantation, and it's a massive plantation. And as they're driving, they see skulls everywhere, like deer skulls and cow skulls, and so they're a little freaked out. They get to the cabin, realize there's no locks on the doors anywhere. They open the door. There's sons of the Confederate Army. There's Confederate flags everywhere, all over this cabin. And he's the only person of color in the wedding party. And, you know, everybody's looking at him. Well, he doesn't want to ruin everybody's time. So he goes along with it. Uh-oh, hold on. I got to go help them in room 4. 1 second.
So you've had a tough week, Damika. You're on mute.
Sorry, I muted because my dog is like literally just sitting here whining. It's her
Mm.
feeding time. I've had like the shittiest week. I just messaged Mary apologizing. Like I was terming one of our VPs just now. So
Mm.
yeah, I sent you a LinkedIn request.
Oh, like recently? I go find
I don't know if you're ever on LinkedIn, but
it. I was on there yesterday because I realized my old title was there, so I had to.
go in and change it.
Let me go find it. Let's see. Navigating text. Okay, that was strange. That's not even. Oh, same thing. Okay.
I love what you
Oh, yeah,
said
just
about
see.
HR, and you said that before when you were talking to me. Like HR needs to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you have an HR person that is concerned about you having conversations like that, they shouldn't be in HR.
So okay, so when I mentioned I had just started, it was March that I started getting involved in our Black Achievement Leadership team, because I didn't even know that this ERG existed. So that was the first thing. And so I reached out and I got into it, but there was an HR person who was also part of our ERG. And what I had noticed that every time that the BALT team, that's what we call Black Achievement Leadership Team, the BALT team wanted to do something, it had to go through these all, chains of approvals. And, when we were right in the midst of it, it was June 7th, I want to say, is the day that my CIO actually posted that thing. And eventually I responded, but they were like, oh, what can we do? What can we do? And I said, why are we stressing out? Let's just have a conversation. And like 3 of the people in the group was, and one of them being the HR person, well, we need to go and get our VP of HR's approval. And at that point, we didn't have a head of diversity and inclusion. We have a head of DE&I now, but we did not back then. We didn't get one until after my post. So that's something else that my response triggered for this company and all this other stuff. And we didn't even onboard her until October. But let me not divert. It was like, for us to do anything, it had to go and get like the approval to do something. And I said, yeah, I remember vividly in that meeting is we need to have these conversations. I said, look, I'm like every day, 3-4 times a day having meetings. And I said, I've already had meetings with like 3 executives, our executive management team at that point. Said I've had meetings with other members of ERGs. I have members, people just reaching out to me from places that I don't know. I had an individual reach out to me from Germany he's the only Black person in Germany in our IT organization. And, you know, you just got to think just how isolated he felt. And I kept saying, why can't we just have a conversation? Why do I have to go and get approvals? I can create a meeting right now and just invite 100 people, and they can't stop me from having a meeting. So there was a little, I wouldn't say pushback, but then they try to put all these things around it. Oh, but you can't do this, you can't say that, and it's going to be so sensitive. What if the wrong thing is said? And I'm just like, I'm just having a conversation. Said it could be just as easy. I said, there's no difference in me scheduling this. If we were in the office, or we had this back and forth. I said, if we were in the office, we would be at the coffee machine having the same conversation in the break room. And I said, because we're virtual, I'm gonna make it a meeting, right?
Yep.
But you know, I tried to appease them, you know, by making it a little bit more formal in terms of putting guidelines and kind of making sure everybody understood that it was a safe place. But I also, you know, my intro was, this is a safe place. This is not an HR event. I've had to make sure that was the disclaimer. This is not an HR event. This is not a corporate sponsored event. This is just me talking to you. And these other ground rules is what stays, you know, what happens here kind of stays here thing. You know, you have to come in up front, trust, respect, be transparent, be authentic, come with an intent to learn, not to judge, not to attack, not to argue, but just to learn and to listen. And if you walk away just doing something different or better, then we've accomplished our goal.
Yep.
And after that first one, and we did live feedback, but after that first one, I'm telling you, all the ERGs want to do it. They, you know, I mean, and they started doing it, which they should. But it received such, you know, great feedback. Oh, we need to have these more. We need to have these. Now it's even part of our standing International Women's Day program now, is like these conversations. And it's simply just conversation.
Yeah. But it's amazing what a conversation can do.
Yeah. Yeah, change.
All right.
So, turn it back.
Okay.
I am grabbing the questions from the chat. And thank you both for continuing the conversation.
So breakout room number 1 got their question in first.
Whoa.
I saw that, Mary. I grabbed it.
It's a competition now, Mary.
Room 2.
It's always competition. It's always
We
competition.
want to discuss.
And it's funny because all right, so I think I've got
Dude, I only
got
saw
4
one.
questions.
You got 4.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I do. All right, and just because, Mary, why don't you just go first? It'll make it easier.
Well, we had a really great dialogue, and Gilberto gave us this, you know, really the start of this great question is, how do we get this message out to the broader community? And then we tried to clarify it and kind of narrowed it down. So maybe we need to start with the broader IT community, but, you know, really the world at large is where we started. So it's, you know, because the conversation today was that powerful.
It starts with you saying to a friend, I had this really awesome conversation. I know this woman, Nicole, and this is what happened to her. Were you even aware that things like this happen? It starts with you.
Yep. I would absolutely agree. You know, we as individuals, you as leaders on this call, change will only start, and it goes from one person at a time.
It is one person at a time.
And I do know that there are other groups that are trying things, but it's also sometimes making sure that the people that need to hear the message are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's why it's not necessarily even just about at work. Go talk to your friends, talk to your kids.
Mhm.
all the time.
Talk to your colleagues. I mean,
I know it
I
sounds
encourage
cliche,
you.
but if you,
Yeah,
you see something, say something.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. If you, I mean, even if you think that, I mean, if you're sitting here right now and you're one of those people that are saying, oh, I didn't even know. And the next time you're in a conference room in a meeting and maybe you have some free time, mention it. Mention it and keep your eyes open. I mean, if you witness something, or the next time you're in a boardroom and you look around the table and everybody's around you, why aren't you saying, hey, where's the diversity in here? Do we need to do something different? Look at your environment, question yourselves, question what it is that you can control, right? Or what you have influence over, and act on it. That's how you become an ally. That's how you help get the word out.
And just know, if you ever come to me and ask me, we don't need those women in things anymore, I'll probably punch you in the throat.
Oh.
Just saying it out loud. Not really. Metaphorically, in my head, I'll do it, but you'll
I
probably get the
believe it.
eyebrow.
I mean, some of the gender conversations become, listen, we're gonna stop pretending to be the society approved version of a female. We'll show you that we can be masculine.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I am passionate, not emotional. Call me emotional one more time. Watch what happens. Anyway, sorry, not about me. All right. So, and this one for me kind of makes me cringe only a little. Just how do we make sensitivity training or similar forums more accessible? And the only reason why I say it makes me cringe a little, and just my little input, anybody who's been around long enough to be in leadership knows how to pass training.
So
how do we?
I think the question maybe then, how do we make effective trainings more available? And to start with, you have to have effective training. So that means that you're not going to go to this big company that flies in 3 white dudes to give you diversity training. Seek out a diverse person to do diversity training and talk to the people in the room that say, oh, this is racist to do. Talk to them, have those conversations, because those are the people that need the training the most, and they're the most resistant to it. So it's accessible, it's out there, but again, you've got to do the work.
Well, I even think a little bit, I may be dating myself a little bit here. I know there's a few on the call around my age. Do you think remember Scared Straight?
That TV show?
Yeah, there are times when I would love to see someone dressed up in, and asked to go to a job interview and see what it's like. I read an article about 2 coworkers who changed names, and one person the male acted as under the woman's name, and the woman acted under the male's name. And all of a sudden, her stats went through the roof, and his went in the toilet. And all they were doing was acting under each other's name. And that's just male and female, let alone throwing in aspects of race and race, creed, color.
Yeah, so I don't typically share this, but there's a reason I go by TJ, and it's not because of my race.
Okay. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you're loved and accepted for exactly who you are.
Maybe by you, but
it's multiple levels. It's actually extremely layered, because I used to work at an international company, and they did allow my system name to say TJ, and my international colleagues were on different systems that didn't get my profile picture, so they actually thought I was physically male. And they would come over and visit and be like, whoa. And I find that I get more respect that way.
Well, my name has been too long at times, and I ends up being spelled Stefan. Stefan.
Mhm.
Mhm. It's amazing how much faster responses are. And to your point, I think it was Tamika, or someone said to you, you're right. I am a hardcore upstander ally. I wasn't always. I am now. And I always will be. I will never allow my voice to be taken away again. So anyway, sorry. Growing up in the South, I
It's
vowed
progress.
to progress. Yes. So, anyway, let's see. I'm going to save the last one. Yeah. I think we got time for both of them. So, how can I ask my friends and colleagues of color to tell me what I need to do differently without making it about me?
You said, how can you ask? Do you ask? That's what you do. If you have friends, then I hope that that friendship is genuine enough that you are comfortable enough to say, hey, this has been weighing on me. I have a question for you. You need to be just as authentic with them as you want them to be with you.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say to that. In terms of your colleagues, and I got this question before, is, how do I ask without feeling as though I'm being insensitive, right? And I think you have to give them the benefit of the doubt that the person that you're choosing to ask will want to help you do better or do different. And I wouldn't say that I mean, it is about you. It really is about you. It's not about them, it's about you. That, because what you're saying is you want to know what it is that you need to do different. That is 100% about you. So whoever asked that question, you need to understand that you're going in there to change yourself. You're asking that question to change who you are and how you behave and how you react or respond or do things. Because the change, again, happens where? It starts where?
Yep.
With you.
The only thing you can control is you.
That's the only thing you can control. But just like any other thing, if you want to know the answer, you've got to be the one to take that first step and ask. You can't expect them to come to you and say, hey, you want to change? It won't work that way. So, but you have to ask. I mean, obviously choose your words wisely. You can even say, yeah, you can even say, I don't really know how to say this. So can I just be allowed to say this the way I think it could be? You could just say that. If you guys watch, I don't know if any of you watch that show, This Is Us. Anybody watch that show, This Is Us? It's an excellent
Great
show.
show.
Just, I think it was either last week or the week before, they had the episode where they dealt with just that, where it was just a very short premise. It was a white man and a black man. The black man was adopted, grew up in a white family, but they had to have a truly controversial conversation between brothers because they literally grew up as brothers, and they had a conversation, and it was like it was life being reflected in this TV show. So if you have not gone to see it, just go Google the last episode of This Is Us and watch it. You can even just watch that one. Actually, it was the whole episode was just based on having that difficult conversation about the white man trying to figure out how to ask his own brother and have to have the same conversation with his brother about race and how his brother grew up and what he could do differently moving forward. You've got to watch that episode. It was excellent.
When you're having a conversation, make sure that you're not defensive. Because I've had people say to me, oh gosh, I just realized I've been doing some really kind of racist stuff, huh? And I'm like, yeah, you have. And you start the conversation and then they get upset, like, oh, that wasn't racist. Oh, that was it. Not up to you to decide.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that.
Right. Your intent doesn't matter.
Though I do want to
All
circle
right.
back to the concept of like even those of us that are minorities have things to learn. So I don't want anyone to feel like that their privilege denies them the right to learn.
Mhm.
True. There have been times I took things personally that I shouldn't have.
And everyone does.
So,
Everyone does about all kinds of different subjects. This one is a sticky one. So
Mhm.
it's really important that you brace yourself and you take that deep breath and you understand this is gonna hurt.
or my favorite is I wake up every day and convince myself that nobody else woke up with the express intention of making my life miserable.
I think my daughter sometimes does, so I don't know about that.
Well, that's kids. That's kids. I'm talking at work. I've had a couple of nemesis before that it was hard to convince myself about, but most days I just have to remind myself they didn't wake up with the intent of making my life miserable. Assume good intent and go from there. All right. So, got one more question. All right. And I love how this is worded. So, without, oh, good Lord, now I can't get to the bottom of it. Technical issues. Sorry, guys. 1 second. I gotta be able to read the bottom of the document. Okay. Seriously. Oh, Word. Microsoft Word and I are not getting along tonight. There we go. Without having to fire board members, which I'm like, okay. What steps can a leader take personally and through policy, if necessary, to deliver a diverse environment within their work and lives?
I'm going to be very honest. Sometimes that may not even be possible, because if you have a CEO who is just like a utter incomplete racist, I don't think that they're going to want to change policies to make them, inclusive and friendly. So sometimes it's about finding another place to call home, truly. But if you have people that are willing to learn and they are willing to grow, help them learn. If there are policies that are wrong, talk to HR, try to get them changed. Sometimes people have policies that they don't even know how it's impacting other people because they just know how it impacts them. So if you can't change policies, if you can't change leaders, change yourself and change the way that you engage with people, change the way that you engage with your team. If you have people on your team that you're like, wow, this person literally never speaks up, find out why. So it's small little things like that that really matter.
I'm gonna say this word, fly. FLY, fly. And it stands for first lead yourself. Be and lead the way that you want to see, or the way you want to be led. Let's put it like that. Because that will in effect, if you're a leader of a team, that will transpire and that will brush off on those that you lead and they will see it. Of course, it has to be authentic. It has to be real, because people will see right through it. And it's not about just saying, here comes an ERG and just pushing or forcing out a communication to say, hey, here's some diversity training, go do it. You have to be actively engaged. You have to actively participate and you have to walk the talk, so to speak. If that's the kind of environment that you want to lead, if that's the kind of environment or culture that you want to have across your organization, start with yourself first, then focus on your team, right? We'll talk about what your core values are. Talk about, the things that how you want to work. And if you want, look in your team, do you have a diverse team? And if not, talk with your team on how do we create some diversity within this team? Do we need to pair up with another team? Come from it from that angle. And trust me, if you are making the change in yourself, other people will see that change and they will hopefully want to also make that change. If you and your team begin making that changes, other teams will see that you're making that change and it's very infectious. Adoption of things, changing the way you act, speak, and address things. It's very infectious, very infectious.
And change the way that you accept things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what Nicole said at the beginning, if in your head you look at me and you think angry Black woman, that's a problem. So you have to change the way that you're receiving things as well.
Remove all preconception. And Nicole, something you said brought up Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if your world is nothing more than what's right around you immediately, that you can have impact on, be the change you wish to see in your world.
Yeah, and if I may just say something, and Nicole, we did speak actually at that conference. I remember you made an impression on me there. I remember, so it's nice to see you again. But actually, to your point about being infectious, and I think I've said this before to the team, but you know, attitudes are caught, not taught. Right?
Simon,
you wrote that down, bro. This is from the last time I said that.
I have it on a sticky that just stuck with me. Attitudes are caught, not taught.
Exactly. So living it yourself,
I do listen.
you know, catches to others. And I think, and the other thing which I mentioned actually in our little breakout, but it's something I always live by, there's a little triangle, right? And in one corner it's behavior, well, one tip is behavior, the other one is attitude, and the other one is experience, right? So the way people behave is fashioned from their attitude, but their attitude is fashioned from their experience. You're not going to change somebody's behavior, at least not voluntarily, right? And you're certainly not going to change people's attitude by telling them to change an attitude. The only way to change the behavior and their attitude is to change their experience, right? Give them a fresh experience, and their attitude will change, and their behaviors will follow, just like day follows night, right? And you know, that question about the CEO who is racist, you know, you're not going to change that racist behavior because they have a particular attitude. But if you can change their experience, that's the way to make that change. And if you're in a leadership position where you have access to that CEO, you have a huge opportunity to do that. Right?
And a responsibility to do it too.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise they're
Crazy doing it.
true. There does come a time when you realize that it's a wall, not, you know, not something you can break through.
Well, yeah, but I think it's a responsibility to try. And
Always try.
Yeah.
You have to try. All right. So, Biffin, I see you're there on mute. He asked if he had switched to his car. So I get to tell everybody. I think we're 2 minutes till 6. Does anybody have any last lingering questions, comments, thoughts? If you have any further questions, Mary and I both have, obviously, Nicole and Shamika's contact info. Either one of us, I'm sure they would be happy also to continue any conversation. Thank you both, Nicole and Shamika, for being very open, authentic.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. No, thank you so much, guys. You rock our world in that sense, and we need to be rocked out of this kind of position.
I do want to call out before people start dropping off that if you guys want to hang out and chat some more, some of us will stay on.
Yeah, I'm hungry. I'm tired of being on Zoom, so you can't let you hang out.
That's fine. Give it to me. I've got it.
I won't click end meeting for all. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I do have to drop because I have to take my daughter to practice, but I want to offer up, if you are all, one of the things that launched after I communicated is I've been getting tapped on the shoulder to go and speak to the different organizations within my company with their management teams. And I found that has been very valuable in helping trigger them to start taking action within their own organization. So I'm free and I can open that up and offer that to anyone who's interested. I'm more than happy to come and speak with you, speak with your teams, and brainstorm on what things that you can do to help, improve the culture of diversity within your teams, your organizations.
Thank you, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a
And
great.
thank you. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. All right, well, with that, guys, the official part of the program is now over. I'm going to skedaddle. I'm tired of being on the phone.
Great
Everybody
hosting,
have a great.
Stephanie.
You're very welcome, and
Thanks.
I will catch up with everybody else later.
Yeah,
Have a
thanks.
good one.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks all. Bye all.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Hey, Nicole, I'm, when we start doing the next women's mastermind, I may end up having, I'd love to talk to you about the potential of coming in and having one of our dialogue conversations on this topic.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I would love to. You know how much I support the women's mastermind. I think it's an excellent channel environment for people, women to just talk, right? We grow from that.
Yeah.
And I grew from that through this process. So if you guys got to witness it.
It was a wonderful opportunity to get to know you better.
Hmm.
We're kind of like all stuck together.
Mhm. Yeah, we're bonded for life now. You can't get rid of me.
That's okay with me.
The best way.
All right, I'm gonna drop. I've got to go run and take my daughter to her
Yep.
basketball
See you,
practice.
see you
All
soon.
right, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.